Fantastic. Welcome, everyone, to the May 17th, 2023 Planning and Development Standing Committee. I am Chair of the committee, Jason Grow, and to my left is the Vice Chair and President of the City Council, Val Gelman, and to the right is our co-member, Tracy O'Neill, Ward Councilor for Ward 2 Council. I knew I couldn't get through the introduction. That's screwing up. Let's see. We also have Jamie O'Hara, Councilor O'Hara, on the call, is sitting in to watch us. If you're calling on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there's a raised hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options to be recognized to speak. I've already introduced you. We've got our Sherry White, our trustee Shepherd here to keep us in line. And with that, I believe we have everybody announced and introduced. So with that, we're going to go to the first item on the agenda tonight, which is the special events. We've got 3 special events tonight. We'll start with special events application 23-18 Harbor Loop Summer Concert Series on Thursdays from July 13th through August 31st, 2023, with rain dates of September 7th, 2023 and September 14th, 2023 at Harbor Loop. This is an annual event that has been great. It's Thursday nights, I believe. Yes, it's Thursday nights. Carol Palazzolo, who is the lead on this, was not able to make it this evening and sent an email and apologizing for not being here. But as far as I know, this has been approved with SEAC, the Special Events Advisory Committee. And there's nothing that I saw that has anything different than any other event that's happened in the last couple of years with their events. So I'm just going to go ahead and read a motion, and then we can discuss. So we're going to move to approve the road closures to hold the Harbor Loop Summer Concert Series on Thursdays from July 13th, 2023 to August 31st, 2023, with rain dates of September 7th and September 14th, 2023. From 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. pursuant to the named dates in order to temporarily close Harbor Loop at the center of the loop at the buoy for the named dates. This event is covered under the City of Gloucester's liability insurance policy as a city-sponsored event, and I so move.
Second.
All right, seconded. Not entirely sure if there's anything to discuss, but please discuss.
It's a great event.
Great event.
Happy with it?
All right, very good. I agree. All the conditions that they need to do have been resolved by the SEAC, so we're good to go. If there's nothing else on the motion to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. All opposed? No opposing, no opposing. So that passes 3-0. And this does not go back to the full city council. So these are done and dusted. Next one, we have a special events application 2337. We have, that is the Fishtown Horribles Parade on July 3rd, 2023, regarding street closures. Let's see if I've got those listed here. These are road closures that are going to be affecting Leslie O. Johnson Road, Centennial Avenue, Western Avenue, Rogers Street, Manuel F. Lewis Street, East Main Street, Prospect Street, Railroad Avenue, Washington Street, Emerson Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, and Blindman Avenue from 6 to 9 p.m. as they do every year on July 3rd. So since you're here, Mr. Goolsbee, is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion so far to tell us about the event? Is there anything that people can do to help out with the event? That means give money.
Yeah, give money.
Give money.
Help enormously.
Okay.
My only other issue is with the high school. I was hoping to see the harbor master because last year we ran into a problem with boaters leaving their trailers in our parking lot. That's my only.
I would definitely bring that up with the harbor master, and he's part of the SEAC, isn't he? I thought he was part of this thing, so I would approach him on that and advise him. And for the record, you're Douglas Goolsbee. Give me your address.
12 Mondello Square.
Old Mondale Square. And is there a place that people can go to donate?
They can send it into our PO Box 924,
In Gloucester.
yes.
PO Box 924, Gloucester, Massachusetts, 01930. Give early and give often. It's a great fun event.
And who are the checks made out to?
Oh, yeah.
Fishtown Horribles.
Not me. Oh, that's wrong. All right, I'll go ahead and read the motion. We're going to move to permit the Horribles Parade Committee to hold the Fishtown Horribles Parade on Monday, July 3rd, 2023, and to close affected city roadways, including Leslie Johnson Road, Centennial Avenue, Western Avenue, Roger Street, Manuel Lewis Street, East Main Street, Prospect Street, Railroad Avenue, Washington Street, Emerson Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, and Glenman Avenue from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. with the following conditions. Number one, certificate of insurance, naming the city of Gloucester as an additional insured party is to be filed with the city clerk's office on or before June 23rd, 2023. Number two, road closure plan, the police department, fire department approvals for the plans for the Fishtown Horribles on July 3rd, 2023 have been received through the Special Events Advisory Committee. Roads to be closed or to be marked with signage directing the public as to the duration of the closure and alternate routes. Traffic and parking plan and police detail information by the police department to be filed with the police chief. Any substantial changes as determined by either the police or fire chief or their designees to the route or related to safety issues may require city council approval. Three, refuse and comfort stations. All refuse and recycling due to this event must be removed by the organizer. Any portable toilets with handicap accessible are to be provided and maintained by the organizer, placed the evening before the event or early in the morning of the day of the event, and be removed by 9 a.m. July. I don't think that's July 3rd. I believe that'd be July 4th, 2023. Because that's the next day, correct? By July 4th, 2023. Emergency services, all requirements of Gloucester Fire Department EMS must be met. Staffing, number 5. A lot of conditions. Event staff should have cell phones and be identified by the public with distinct shirts. A list of event staff and their cell phone numbers is to be submitted to the police, fire, and DPW departments. Number 6, notification of immediate abutters and businesses through the parade route. Notice shall be made by the event organizer by hand or by mail no later than 7 days in advance of the event to function halls, motels, and hotels and other businesses along the parade route. 7, responsibility of the Fishtown Horribles Parade Committee. The applicant is also required to obtain any necessary approvals from the health department. It is the sole responsibility of the Horribles Parade Committee to ensure that all required documentation is timely filed with the appropriate city departments as indicated. Failure to comply with any conditions precedent may result in permit revocation. Applicant is also required to comply with any requirements made by departments of the Special Events Advisory Committee. And 8, vendors for the event. A, the Horribles Parade Committee must obtain transient vendor licenses for non-food vendors from the city clerk's office at least 1 week prior to the event. And B, the Horribles Parade Committee is to provide a vendor list to the city clerk and the chief of police at least 1 week prior to the event. And I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I just have a question. Are you going to contact
right?
TJ or is?
No, you could do that.
Okay,
Because-
I just
yeah.
wasn't sure if you said you were.
Yeah, no, I think they should.
Okay.
arrange that.
Okay. That's it.
Any other discussion?
No,
No?
great.
It's another great event. Thanks for having it. Thanks for persevering. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming down. Do my best to your way.
Does that mean I can leave?
You can leave unless you want to hang out. It's going to get fun in a little while.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
all right.
Thanks.
The third event, special events application 23-40. Block party on June 17th, 2023, July 22nd, 2023, and August 19th, 2023, with rain dates July 29th, 2023, and August 26th, 2023 on Lexington Avenue. Quarry Street closures. Okay, to the Magnolia one, sorry. So I don't think we have anybody here for this one. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies, I apologize. Please.
That was a lot to read.
Trust me, I haven't. Most people don't even see me against the gray, so. Please do tell us about your event. This is Magnolia.
Yep, my name's Eric Liacono, I live at 14 Lawndale Circle. I own some of the buildings on Lexington Avenue. And we're trying to help Lexington Avenue get more business throughout the summer. So we thought doing the block parties would be a good idea. So.
Right? Yes, I think that's exciting. They don't conflict with the other block parties, right?
No, we made sure.
Okay.
That wouldn't be good for either.
No, I was going through this thinking, I've already done this, we've already done this, and then I didn't realize this streets were different. That's great. Is there anything special you're gonna be having?
Be music, there'll be some vendors, you know, hopefully everybody that's has a business on Lexington Avenue will participate. We're gonna do a 50-50 for the library to help them get some money.
Right.
So that'd be good.
Excellent. All right. Any questions? No questions? No? We get free tickets.
He's just joking.
Yes.
Scratch that from the.
The tickets are free. I would never do anything untoward. All right, I'm gonna move to approve the road closure of Lexington Avenue from, you guys really responded to that. Move to approve the road closure of Lexington Avenue from Norman Avenue to Flume Road in order for Eric Liacono.
Yep.
Thank you. To hold a block party series on Saturday, June 17th, 2023, Saturday, July 22nd, 2023, and Saturday, August 19th, 2023, with rain dates of June 24th, 2023, July 29th, 2023, and August 26th, 2023, between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. Road to be closed between the hours of 5 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. with the following conditions. Read these. Number one, no vendor merchant setups on the sidewalk blocking entrance ways to retail or residential units, hydrants, crosswalks, or handicap ramps. 2, all vendor setups in the street are to allow for no less than a 10-foot unobstructed drivable area along the entire route to maintain adequate access for emergency vehicles. Failure to provide a 10-foot wide unobstructed margin of drivable area may necessitate the removal or relocation of the vendor merchant at the discretion of the fire department, the police department, or the block party committee. 3, the organizers shall allow the fire department drive-through access with the fire engine at the convenience of the fire department. 4, any restaurant merchant setup of tables and chairs, tents, or area enclosures should extend into the street no further than the lines painted on the street for vehicular parking. 5, that all of the side streets shall not be blocked by vendors, food establishments, tables, chairs, enclosures, equipment, or vehicles. So emergency vehicles may enter and exit Lexington Avenue if needed. 6, vendor merchants shall be responsible for their own trash removal. 7, signs indicating the location of comfort stations shall be the responsibility of the block party committee. 8, plumbing codes and regulations shall be adhered to regarding use of restaurant bathroom facilities. 9, special lighting and electrical requirements necessitate approval of the inspector of buildings and the electrical inspector. 10, the closure of the street at the intersection of Lexington Avenue and Norman Avenue and Flume Road must be by means of salt horses or the like as directed by the Gloucester Police Department. 11, it is the responsibility of the block party committee to procure any other necessary federal, state, and local permits and rules associated with this event. 12, that the committee make the reasonable notification to all residents and merchants along the route that will be affected by the closure. 13, restaurants or vendors wishing to serve food outside must notify the Board of Health 7 days in advance for approval and must obtain any necessary approvals of block party committee. 14, conditions or permitting requirements imposed by the Gloucester Licensing Board shall also apply and shall become incorporated herein as to the outdoor sidewalk service of food and alcohol. 15, all other applicable laws, city ordinances, and/or regulations are in full force, including ordinances regarding blocking of sidewalks. The police department will enforce these requirements in the interest of public safety, and I so move.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Question,
Yes.
at the beginning, it says, oops, wait a minute. That Eric Liacono is holding the block party,
Yeah,
but then throughout this, it mentions a committee. So it doesn't seem to
we
be,
can say how about the Magnolia, what do you call it? How about the Magnolia block party?
That's fine.
All right.
Can I make up my other note?
Yeah.
There was not a rain date on the 24th that conflicted with the Fiesta.
Okay,
So they asked us the last time if we would not have that as a rain date.
all right. Okay, then I'm gonna move to amend the motion to strike Eric Diacono and incorporate Magnolia Block Party Committee. And strike June 24th, 2023 as the rain date.
I second the amendment.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendments?
No.
Okay, all in favor of the amendments?
Aye.
All right, and on the main motion? Any
Aye.
discussion? Good, good to go. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks a lot. Have fun.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. All right. So where are we? I'm checking the attendance list just to see if there's anything else to
Do you want
talk
to
about.
mention what ones you're continuing?
Yeah. I guess that. So Jamie Stowe Harris sort of remains the only city council on the agenda. We do have one agenda item to be continued, and that is rezoning 2023-002 Madison Avenue, number 36, map 39, lot 41, from extensive business to R5 high density residential. And that will be continued until 6/7/23. Yep. And what's that?
What item 6? Yeah.
Well, we hadn't got to that because
Oh,
it's item 6,
okay.
but it.
In case anybody's, I need to go to the bathroom. for a
Yeah.
second,
Picked up
Because
motion.
no, I think I have a tick, even though I just got out of the shower.
Okay.
I
All
feel
being
a tick.
recorded.
I was just a dog now, walking the dog.
We're gonna take a tick break.
Yeah, should we take a 5-minute break?
We're just gonna sit here silently.
Well, I thought I might go in.
Go for it. Yeah. I'm just gonna pass it in a minute. It's the first.
A lot of first.
For those at home, it's tick season. Careful. They're sneaky.
We're doing no mow May, and our front lawn looks lovely.
Ah.
Our back lawn looks like we've abandoned the property, and now we're nervous to like send the kids in the backyard because like we're hoping for like, you know, butterflies and honeybees and stuff. But, like
Yeah.
we probably just got
We're
like
getting ticks. You should get a possum.
tick-
Possum love ticks.
The guinea hens.
The guinea hens are also a big one, yeah. Guinea
They
hens are
do
great.
travel.
Yeah.
Guinea hens.
What is it?
Just
A guinea hen?
Guinea hen.
They're little gray things, they
They're
look like
cute,
little
really
balls
cute.
with little cootie heads, they have like little
Oh.
coot heads and they eat lots of ticks. Sure, everybody signed up tonight to listen to TikTok. TikTok. There you go.
No pun intended.
Oh, all pun intended. All pun intended. All right, we'll get back to work here in a second. Because we're all sorted out.
Love your bees.
I do. I've got 2 hives this year. They all died last year. But yeah, that first cold snap was a surprise. So
So it's supposed to be a cold snap tonight or
Oh, is
a
it?
frost tonight?
it is, but it's not that cold.
Okay, yeah,
When we
I
had
thought they said early in the week.
Yeah, there are these fresh plantings you put out in pots still.
Yes.
Bring 'em back in.
Yeah.
We moved everything outside this
seedlings.
weekend.
Yeah, I know, I just plants all these seedlings.
Yeah, So
They said to
stuff
cut
them.
those.
Oh. Supposed to be hot yesterday and it wasn't hot, so.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, we did see a few honeybees in the long grass and some of the flowers.
Good, there you go.
Look at the bumbles, so it's nice to see like, you know, your
Sorry.
style would be hanging out.
I got them all though. We got Sarah hates them. And of course, they're just terribly destructive. But carpenter bees. They're the ones that are like 15 inches long.
I asked for 5-minute break. I don't know if we-
Thank you.
Is she okay?
I think we're okay,
if
yes.
we can have it.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for the
No,
interruption,
it's-
but
we'll just
don't
check.
want to get Lyme
I
disease.
took that off on the done box. All right. We will get back into order here. So we're gonna get back into session here after our take break. And we're gonna go to number 4 on the agenda. Special council permit 2023-004, modification of special council permit 2019-006. East Main Street, number 16, map 59, lot 53, GZO section 5.11.4, basic requirements to amend the current city council permit to pay a fee in lieu of a required affordable housing unit in the neighborhood business district. This was continued from 5/3/23. And for the sake of bringing everybody up to speed, I'm going to read a narrative, the timeline and puts us, I think, where we are today. So with your indulgence, I will do this. On March 15th, an application was submitted for modification of previously granted special council permit 2019-06. It was originally granted on December 8th, 2020. The current owner, according to the narrative supplied by Attorney Cabaza in attendance tonight, indicated that ownership of the property by the current owner applicant was made after the land court ruled in favor of the previous applicant petition following initial rejection by the city council in 2018. Modification is requested under GZO 1.5.13, compliance with approved plans, modifications of plans, which allows, at the request of the applicant, the city council, zoning board of appeals, or planning board may make substantive changes to the plans as approved or the conditions, safeguards, or limitations it is imposed, provided that the interests of the neighborhood and the city are not impaired, and only after due notice and a public hearing, and only for good cause shown. The application included a list of direct abutters, the abutters to abutters who were required to be noticed by the application. On March 28th, the application was referred to Planning and Development Standing Committee. On April 5th, the application was presented by Attorney Joel Fabaz on behalf of his client Ballerina Construction, current owner of the property. Attorney Fabaz acknowledged in his narrative that, quote, as permitted, one of the units is required to be deed restricted affordable unit pursuant to GZO section 5.11 and is seeking to modify the permit to allow for an in lieu fee under the 2023 zoning inclusionary ordinance, housing ordinance. Attorney Fabaz cited his reasons under section 1.8.3 for the request, quote, due to the closure of a nearby elementary school and the decline of other amenities in East Gloucester that would contribute toward the ability of the target demographic of affordable housing to live comfortably in East Gloucester. The locus is no longer an ideal location for a single affordable unit. And also that the city has rejected GZO amendments that were pending at the time and would have encouraged the addition, of other units of affordable housing in East Gloucester. He suggested that his client's position that the in lieu fee would be better for the city and that they are, quote, already in discussion with the Affordable Housing Trust as to how this money might be applied to the rehabilitation or creation of several units of affordable housing elsewhere in Gloucester. We did not hear anything officially from the Affordable Housing Trust on this front, however, and I don't believe that they've taken it up as a formal response. At the April 5th Planning and Development meeting, it was asserted by the chair that the governing zoning regulations have been me, which is governing zoning regulations in effect at the time of the granting of the permit should be the governing regulations for the permit. And that meant that the inclusionary housing ordinance in effect in 2020 would determine what modifications could be made and how. Applicant was granted a continuance at this point to confer with their counsel. And discussion on the application was continued to May 3rd. P&D subsequently, Attorney Cabaza submitted his legal argument that contends that the current inclusionary ordinance is in effect, while Gloucester's general counsel has advised the committee that the governing zoning ordinance is in effect at the time of the grant of the permit controls and forms the basis by which the council should determine whether the special permit should be modified. Section 5.11 in effect in 2019-2020 required that the affordable unit would be built on site unless the council finds that it would be an economic hardship and the developer could be permitted to make a final or to make a payment in lieu of the building, could make a payment in lieu of building the unit. And at this point, that was continued again on May 3rd to tonight. And at this point, the questions before the committee are two. One, has the applicant demonstrated the construction of the affordable unit on site creates an economic hardship? And two, if so, on the basis of the application and presentation, are, quote, the interests of the neighborhood and the city are not impaired, and is there a good cause for modifying the special permit to allow the applicant to make a payment in lieu of building an affordable unit on site? That's my narrative. That's my synopsis of where we are to date. So I guess the first question we would have is, Attorney Fabaz, you're here. You've had a couple weeks to confer with your client. where are you? I'm gonna
Sure.
toss open just for,
So exploring the avenues of continuing to push, obviously, shockingly, two attorneys have a different opinion on something.
weird.
Yeah, first in history. And so rather than try and fight this out, is there a way in which if we acquiesce to the council's request that, or position that the 2019 version is the ordinance to use, then we look at how could we make our request fit within that? And so the two questions I have tonight, one is, because the zoning ordinance is silent as to the definition of economic hardship, I would look for guidance and some collaboration to figure out what P and D and or the city council would be looking for to, everything else that we do, there's always a standard review somewhere in the zoning ordinance. This part of the zoning ordinance has no standard review that defines what this means, right? So economic hardship to you versus Councilor Gilman versus Councilor Neal may mean three different things versus 6 and temporary. So that'd be important for us to get that issue resolved. And then the secondary discussion, as I mentioned in my primary presentation under the current ordinance, the idea was pay a fee in lieu. And I had mentioned at the time that there was concern that a fee in lieu would just kind of sit in a bank account and not actually create these units, that my client was willing to do the work. Well, under the old ordinance, you have the fee in lieu option or you have the off-site option, both of which are unlocked by showing an economic hardship. And so if we were to go forward under this old ordinance with the economic hardship provision, I think what I would be inclined to do is revise my request. Instead of making a fee in lieu, we would offer offsite unit. We'd actually offer, it requires a 1-to-1 ratio. If you have one due on your project, we do one offsite instead. We would offer a 2-to-1 ratio. We'd still create 2 units of offsite housing, but it would be direct under the provision of the old ordinance versus having to pay into the housing trust and then pull the money out of the housing trust to build these units. We will skip that intermediary and just build the things. So again, we establish what the economic hardship threshold is, and then my client, qualifies under that. We would come in to request a change from a fee in lieu to just we'll build these things and demonstrate the economic hardship, or attempt to demonstrate the economic hardship based on the standards we established.
I'm gonna hold you there for a second. I'm gonna should have done at the end of my narrative, just ask you both if you have any questions or any corrections or any suggestions about things that were maybe not included in that. And we'll come back to you folks, sorry.
No, I think everything you read was clear.
Teresa, did you have any questions about my narrative?
Oh, well,
Stick with that first.
good cause, I wrote down good cause. Do they have to show good cause?
No,
And what is that?
I think we have to determine what good cause is.
Okay.
In terms of the way it's written. The 511.8 alternative methods of affordability in the 2019 ordinance states that the City of Gloucester Planning Board, when either is acting as the granting authority, may allow an alternative method of compliance in the section with the formal written request of the developer. In granting such authorization, the City Council Planning Board must find that the developer has demonstrated building the required affordable units on site would create an economic hardship. Approval of alternative methods of compliance shall be only for the methods described below in section B. Section B goes on to talk about the following alternative methods of compliance may be allowed by the City Council Planning Board's granting authorities, and any alternative authorized by them shall comply in all other respects with the requirements of this ordinance. And that is, as you said, the offsite location with the authorization of the City Council. Affordable units may be constructed by the developer on an alternative site. And then it goes on to explain what that allows, creates, and then get into location of construction of offsite units should be provided should be reviewed by the City Council Planning Board as an integral element to the special permit approval process. Or the cash contribution, which is with authorization of the City Council Planning Board is described above. Developers may make a cash payment in lieu of the affordable units to the Affordable Housing Trust as outlined below. And for ownership units, the financial contribution for each affordable unit shall be equal to the difference between the average market sales price for the market rate units in the subject development and the purchase price affordable to an income eligible household as defined by this ordinance and household urban development. And then there's some other additional clarifications. And then, what did I say? 5.8.
11.8,
Yes.
5.11.8.
5.11, no, I'm thinking about 1.5, 13, which allows the city council to request the applicant to make substantive changes to the plans that is approved with the conditions, safeguards, or limitations that is imposed, provided that the interests of the neighborhood and the city are not impaired, and only after due notice in public hearing, and only for good cause shown. So our job at this point will be determining sort of to help define what is good cause shown, what is economic hardship,
Right,
how do we quantify that and go forward. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our city solicitor, Suzanne Egan, to weigh in on all those lovely things.
Thank you. So in terms of whether or not or how the city council would look at the term, the notion or the definition of economic hardship, I would suggest that the way to do this is in the language of, and I have handouts to everybody so that you can follow along here. I provided Attorney Pavazza with it, but this is a 2019 zoning ordinance. And in section 511, 2019 zoning ordinance. And in that zoning ordinance, it defines and discusses the notion of inclusionary zoning as complying with the requirements of chapter 40B, and that affordable unit will be included in the subsidized housing inventory. And so I think then it refers to economic hardship here, that they would have to show economic hardship. So, and there is no legislative history in adopting this ordinance is what economic hardship is. And so I would suggest that the city council would then refer back to the regulations that define comprehensive permits and affordable housing and look at that to see whether or not there's a definition of economic hardship in there. And what those regulations provide is how to define what an economic condition is. And that means under those regulations that the developer does not receive a reasonable return on their investments. And that's, if you look at what I just handed you, those were the regulations under 760 CMR 56.02. And in those definitions, there is a definition of uneconomic and also reasonable return on the investment. And I would think that what the city council would do in this instance, it makes sort of logical sense, is to say, we have a zoning ordinance that says, what we want to do is make sure that the affordable units are included in their subsidized housing inventory, as noted in chapter 40B. If we don't have a definition, go to the regulations implemented in chapter 40B and affordable units that would be eligible for the subsidized housing inventory, and look at those regulations and use those definitions that are contained within those regulations. And therefore you can look at that and say, what's an economic hardship? Look to those regulations saying whether it's an uneconomic condition, and what does that mean? So whether or not the developer will receive a reasonable return on the investment, and that's all defined in the regulations. So it's it sort of gives everybody a path and sort of a reasonable basis under which to come up with the definition of economic hardship.
So we're looking at a framework that's defining what defines, so it's not arbitrary.
It's not arbitrary. It's consistent with the intent and purposes of the inclusionary zoning ordinance that references these sections in.
so I don't see economic hardship defined in there.
So-
Just gave it.
So economic hardship is not what is defined as uneconomic.
Uneconomic, right, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I give you a copy.
I have my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
So just for the sake of people listening, and because this is being presented tonight, I'm just going to read the two definitions that Solicitor Egan and Attorney Egan has pointed out, and one of them is reasonable return means is calculated according to guidelines issued by the department. And with respect to a building and ownership project or continuing care retirement community, that profit to the developer is not more than 20%, not less than 15% of the total development costs. And that uneconomic is, means any condition imposed by a board in its approval of a comprehensive permit brought about by a single factor or a combination of factors to the extent that it makes it impossible for a limited dividend organization. That would qualify.
It is, this isn't a limited dividend organization, this is obviously a for-profit developer,
Profit
but it's,
And still to proceed and still realize a reasonable return in building or operating such project within the locations set forth. So I read that as that we can't put a condition on a project that would make it so onerous as that it'd be impossible to make a reasonable return.
essentially, yeah, so I mean, it is, so in terms of the, what's before the board or the committee at this point is saying to the developer, the city council has to find it to be uneconomic or an economic hardship in order to make that determination that instead of building on site, you do a payment in lieu of building off-site. And then the question is, well, what's the definition of uneconomic or an economic hardship? You need something, right? We're not gonna pull, we need a rational basis to define that. And I think if you go to those regulations, there's your definition. It's set out for you, you can look at it. It's something that's been agreed upon in the affordable housing development industry regulatory body. I think that's fair. I think that I discussed this with Attorney Favazza, and it seems like this is a fair manner to deal with this issue.
Because of some guidelines. You have any questions that you'd like to?
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions? There's a lot to drop on you.
Yeah,
Just got this today.
well, the original agreement with the previous owner, right, is that null and void?
No, the permit is the permit. And so the
So,
way that in my narrative, I tried to explain it is
Yep.
that the rules in place at the time the permit were granted are what govern.
okay,
So the question would be to Councilor Favazza is, if you were under the impression that 2023 rules applied, why would you come in for a modification of a permit? Because the permit already granted the option to your client, so there was nothing to modify. So we're operating under the position that 2019 regs are controlling, and that gives the applicant one of three ways to satisfy this. One is to build it on site, and if not on site, then to prove economic hardship or the inability to make a reasonable return. And then that gives them two options at that point, either to build off-site, something that's comparable, or to pay into the Affordable Housing Trust based on the formula, which I read, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if your reading is different, Joel, is the difference between what the sale price might be
mhm,
for the average of those units minus the sale price for the 80% affordable. That's the delta.
Right.
So the more they go for, the more that delta stretches. So that's where we're at. Now back to you, Joel, sorry.
No, that's okay. Everyone needs a turn. So just to respond, I'm not sure if it was a rhetorical question, but it was asked. The reason, going back to the way it was applied for, is, again, as the city is aware, because last time the city was taken to court over a special permit modification, it was like the flip happened. When the applicant went in for a modification and the council treated it like a new permit, and a land court judge sided with the city and said, when you come in on a modification, you can treat it like a new permit. And to that end, again, this has been docketed as a 2023-004 matter, right? So it does have a new permit number on it. So I don't think that we're barred either way. But again, that's, in trying to get back to, if we just say, okay, let's do the 2019 stuff. As far as defining economic hardship, I'm in agreement with, the idea that the ordinance speaks to or speaks about 40B. 40B has these regulations that are promulgated pursuant to it. The only part where I would differ is that although I think uneconomic and the sub-definition of reasonable that defines it, right, is guidance, I don't think that economic hardship and uneconomic are the same thing. If I have a hardship in someone who has a hardship with walking versus someone who is unable to walk, that is the level of severity, right? It's an economic hardship versus an uneconomic. So the economic hardship is not as dire as uneconomic, right? And again, in that the zoning ordinance speaks about 40B, and as Attorney Egan pointed out, that we have to use rational basis here. 40B has been using uneconomic, and the city council that pulled this ordinance in referencing 40B, would have used uneconomic, the term, and instead used a different term, which again, if you go to compare these, so you go, okay, well, they were aware that 40B existed, they were aware of the regulations concerning the 40B, they wanted this to work, in a way that the 40B regulations work, but then they chose to use different terminology. They didn't want to say it's uneconomic before you can get off site with your units. They just showed economic hardship. And so I would say that uneconomic as defined is a good piece of guidance, but I think it'd be incorrect to equate uneconomic as economic hardship, and that economic hardship is not as severe as uneconomic. But otherwise, I do agree that 40B does give guidance, and that this obviously was looking at 40B when being drafted.
So it sounds like that gives us more discretion in defining what economic hardship is.
Right, because it was a term that the city council, chose to use in legislation.
Yeah.
So if you look at if you want to look at that and what the Cambridge Dictionary definition of economic hardship is, it's difficulty having too little money or too few resources. So it could be that, and then you would still have to go into a definition. What does that mean? Too little money versus a 15% return on investment. So, I think by going to the guidelines and the regulations, what you're doing is you're coming up with something that's reasonable, and you have something you can judge what's submitted to you. Otherwise, it's going to be, it's rather subjective, right? Is it too little money or too few resources?
Right.
So I always like to see, and I think it's fair to applicants, to have a strong rule or some rationale on which you make your decision. So it may be true, but I think it's reasonable to say, looking at those regulations. And then the only thing that I would like to respond to is that in terms of whether the city, I do, and Attorney Favaz and I have had this conversation before, but I don't agree with the fact that a judge has said that you can treat this as either a new or a modification of a special permit decision. I think that one case there was a judge said the city council was able to treat a request for a modification as between a new or a request for a modification. That was dealing with a property where the special permit was issued 15 years earlier. And so that came back before the judge. And the judge in that instance looked at something that had been issued 15 years different. Earlier, that was the Gattinari case that went on for a long time in the city of Boston, decades. And so this special permit, request for a special permit modification is before you tonight. It's ongoing. It was issued. It is still under construction. I don't think you can look at this as saying they're coming in for a brand new permit for a multifamily development unless they're doing that. But it's really a modification of this. And I think that you're stuck with that decision that was issued.
Yeah, so again, I think I'm in agreement with Attorney Egan that it's fair to both sides and protective for both sides. I would not want to try and make the economic argument if I didn't know where the goalposts were. And depending where the goalposts are, whether or not I come to try and make the argument at all. If you say, hey, we think economic hardship is a 5% return, anything above a 5% return, and you're in good shape, which is less than the 15%, that's uneconomic, right? You went the other way with it. I'd say, well, I can't.
Well,
I can't
the ordinance says 15% is reasonable return. And uneconomic is that we don't put conditions that create a situation where it is not.
Right.
So I think that uneconomic, we should probably just lose that term because we're not using it in terms of our conditions that we're placing on the permit.
But I'd be curious.
Sorry, reasonable.
Right, now, so that is the decision of the subcommittee to say, hey, we're gonna use reasonable return. Say, and again, I would, because unable to have a reasonable return equals uneconomic, like you do the basic like geometric proof, right? Okay, well then maybe it's that. But I'm saying is that you would still go back and say, okay, we can't have economic hardship equal not reasonable return, because again, reasonable return is tied in the 40B language back to that really harsh uneconomic standard. So I would ask for whatever that set is going to be. Is it 15%? Is it 20%? Is it a percentage? Is it some other function? I would ask for that. Because I think, uneconomic is no reasonable return, which means uneconomic equals less than 15%. Economic hardship is not as dire than economic, so we know it has to be higher than 15%. And then what is that? What is that threshold? And then I would say, okay, and then I discuss with my clients who certainly, we weren't coming here thinking we'd be having to open the books up, but as you can imagine, when
We have a choice.
we purchase, wait, no, nobody, I'm saying we purchased I'm saying the data is probably there to support that as well, because when this thing was purchased, since then, I think commercial lending rates have gone up 450 basis points. We've had about 12% of inflation. When they were building the thing, lumber was at the peak of all the commodities, right? So, if that is what needs to be presented, to show you that the beat down they took in dealing with building this thing, that economic condition, I think what the actual monetary threshold is, based on the projected sales prices, what they've spent so far, what they still have to spend to date. And again, is that 20-25%? What is that economic hardship? Anything below this is economic hardship. We can actually figure out whether we qualify under what we judge it by. I can come in or make the argument of economic hardship. I don't know where that goalpost is.
Right. Very unlikely to not have questions.
I'm ready to vote on what we have in front of us. And if we need to have Suzanne speak to the full council at the public hearing, she can speak more about it.
So you're comfortable with the motion going forward as it is?
I don't know if you are, but maybe maybe we should pause and ask Suzanne if there's language she feels that we should specifically add to the motion.
Yeah.
In terms of these words, and if that's the case,
I mean,
we should put it off for another meeting. Make sure that we're
Right.
clear. I mean,
let me ask Suzanne, if I could ask you, is there a process by which we do this in a two-part manner? We deal with the initial application, which is the modification of the permit. We vote that. And that goes to the full city council. Because one of the questions I have, was just about to ask is, in order to adopt the language of 760, do we have to do that as a full council? If we were to go that route.
Well, you're not, so I guess I would say this. I think it would be challenging to do as a two-part process because there's one question before you. There's a request for a modification of a special permit. I don't really see how there's a two-part question on that. And whether or not, if you were going to say, well, we're faced with this zoning, we have a standard here, it says economic hardship, whether what standard we are going to apply, and we choose as a city council, as a subcommittee to choose this standard and then move forward for that. I don't think you would need the full city council to make that determination as a committee. that doesn't mean that this becomes incorporated into the zoning ordinance. It means that it's a part of the consideration for the modification of this special permit. And keeping in mind that this was the 2019 zoning ordinance that is controlling this special permit, and that zoning ordinance has been changed. So this sort of decision would affect any similarly situated special multifamily development projects, but not any projects that are going to come forward for permitting purposes. So I don't think it needs to go to the full city council to use the language as contained within the regulations when looking at whether there's an economic hardship being presented.
Yeah, this doesn't feel right. You're asking for us to change the special permit because of economic hardship, but you don't want to show us the books until we tell you what that is. It doesn't feel right.
So if I can respond, I can't think of another instance in which I've come to the city council seeking relief for a permit on something where the standards of review have not been set by the zoning ordinance. We have section 1.3 for special permits for use. We have section 3.16B for heights above 35 feet, right? And it tells you what you need to show as the applicant and what the council needs to make a finding on or not for, right? Based on these standards. And so one, I have not made any presentation to date on economic hardship to you because, again, we haven't even got to the point of what is that standard? What does economic hardship mean? And so again, while I appreciate Councilor Gilman would be glad to have me not here every other week tying up P&D and move this up, I don't know how I can get out of P&D without establishing what economic hardship is going to mean and being provided the opportunity to make that economic hardship argument to P&D before P&D makes the recommendation to the city council positively or negatively that the applicant has or has not shown the requisite, requirements for a modification and to use the old ordinance, do offsite development, that sort of thing. So in my head, it would be like the committee would have to, define what the standards are. The applicant should be offered an opportunity to make a presentation based on the standards up before them. And then the subcommittee would make their vote to recommend or not recommend to the council based on the presentation that was based on the standard. And as far as it feeling right, again, there's no other situation in which I've ever had to come in and say, what does this mean? Because the zoning ordinance up until this point in my career has told you what it means. And this is the one time I've come across it where he goes, and for all I know, that was one of the reasons for the revision, like that was something that was fixed, right? You look at the new inclusionary housing ordinance, there's definitions for everything. There's no controlling term that doesn't have a hook to it. And so it's a unique situation we're in.
Isn't the 15% a reasonable return? Isn't that it? So anything under 15% would be a hardship?
So that's not,
So that's contained in the state regulations. So what I gave you the zoning ordinance that was in effect in 2019 that has the language about an economic hardship, that the developer has to show there's an economic hardship and therefore they don't have to build it on site. Right. So the question is, what does economic hardship mean? And so what I said then is like, let's look at how the state regulations deals with affordable housing. And what do they do? And what does the state look at when they're making a determination that a developer who's putting in affordable housing has to do something that they say is too hard, like they're not going to make enough money in order to do it, which is it's an uneconomic condition. They say this is an uneconomic condition. And then they say, well, how do we judge that, right? Because everybody's saying, hey, I'm not making enough money. It's not enough profit for me on my investment. And so the regulations define it by saying, if you're not making a reasonable return on your investment, then it's uneconomic.
Right.
So we're saying 15%, and that's in the state regulations,
Is the
not
15,
in local.
is the 15% in the state regulation?
Yes, it's not in the local.
So isn't that the number?
It's the number in,
Oversimplifying, I guess. but-
yeah, because one is a different regulatory scheme. It's still dealing with affordable housing
It's still state.
and
you're
affordable
talking about.
housing, subsidized housing inventory, right?
Yep.
And one is the local
Right,
ordinance,
understood.
right?
So our local ordinance has to put something in writing that it either agrees with the state or disagrees with the state.
So our,
And we have
lo-
to put a number on it.
so our local ordinance doesn't define that.
So
And we
the-
have to come up, every time the council is faced with this issue, when to say, oh, it's an economic hardship, we have to say, well, economic hardship. How are we gonna define that? How can somebody prove it's an economic hardship?
Wait, so the state defines it as 15%, though, right?
So the state says, in terms of affordable housing, it becomes uneconomic if they don't realize 15% reasonable return on their investment.
But does it make, they say that we can't put an economic condition on it, but they just say reasonable, they just define reasonable rate of return as 15%.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
It's still. Somebody might consider that to be not uneconomic. But. Never mind.
yeah,
So, go ahead.
I mean, not, so let me just contradict what I said. Maybe we need to go back, we just got this today.
Yeah.
And take a closer look at all the information
Mhm.
and feel that any of our follow-up questions can be answered at the next meeting before we move forward. I mean, I'm a little bit conflicted with a lot of things, like I was surprised, I think you remember when you brought up the fact that the new school isn't as good as the old school, because the old school is right there, and I was trying to figure out where you were going, because I would think that any person that might move there with a family would be delighted to have a new school, because everyone has a bus that they can get on to a brand new school, so I couldn't understand where you would go. I should be talking to us, not the applicant. But that was something that was confusing me last time, so maybe it's appropriate that we just pause and nurture this a little bit more.
Yeah.
And have more time to digest it before we make a decision, because I don't want to flounder when we get in front of the full council.
You can explain our
and
justification.
Explaining our
right?
justification.
Yeah, I mean, my position is that, I think I've maintained throughout this whole process is that we're trying to follow the rules. And the rules in effect at that time dictate the following things. What I didn't anticipate, and which Suzanne pointed out to me, is that our ordinance is silent on what defines the very thing that we're asking them to define. So by asking her to go and define that, she was able to sort of tease out what the justifiable amount is. Now, I mean, we can argue about whether or not 15% on real estate investment is reasonable return or not, but the state has finally said, this is what we determine as being reasonable return. So I'm comfortable with waiting another meeting or so to allow us to grab a hold of this concept, but also to allow Attorney Plaza to consult with his client on providing an explanation of what if they believe that they don't qualify under economic reasonable return. But you're gonna have to prove that to us. I mean, two lines, what it cost me and what I'm gonna make. Like it's 14.9%. I'm gonna have a pretty squinty view on that.
Sure.
But because at the end of the day, even though it's all defined, it still says may. So we need to be convinced that this is in the best interest, this change is in the best interest of the city and the neighborhood. So we still have to keep that in the back of our mind, but we would expect a fairly comprehensive analysis of what those numbers mean, if that's the argument they want to go with.
So would it make sense at the next meeting that I would come in with a two-pronged approach and say, hey, here's what I think economic hardship should reasonably mean. And here's how I show you we meet it, or do you want to say, hey, we'll tell you what economic hardship means and you show us whether you can meet it or not. So it can go either way about this, but I want to waste time and say,
Yeah, no, I understand. I think we go with with Suzanne's advice, which is we applied 760 and its definition of reasonable return. We're not putting, the permit, to my knowledge, doesn't have any economic conditions on it that make it uneconomic.
Well, except construction of the unit on site versus,
But that was not an additional condition that was put on us. It was a condition as a part of the process. It wasn't like that was a surprise. We didn't tell you that it had to have,
and that's where the modification comes in. And at the time, the previous applicant going through it was penciling out. And then reality has come in, right? And that's why you would still, even though it wasn't a supplementary or a secondary condition, it was a primary condition. That's why it's a modification. The argument was not made in 2019. There's an economic hardship. I need to build off site. In 2019, the argument was made to
Right.
build it on site.
no.
That's why we're at the modification
Yeah.
saying, okay. And the last thing I just want to say, I appreciate the time to speak tonight, is I just remember at the core of this is not the new property owner saying, hey, it's not going to be great for me to build this on site. So I want to get out of jail free card. I don't want to do it at all. Right. He initially came in saying, I'll pay you guys $417,000 to, and I will pledge to build it. Now I'm going to come back in with revised saying, if you let me not build this one here, I will build you two. So the affordable housing numbers in Gloucester, so they're up by 1, are gonna go up by 2 as a result of this. There's no scenario in which we're asking, hey, this is too hard. We don't want to contribute to the goal of increasing affordable housing. And that's all that I just want that, kind of be out there. We're not trying to shirk responsibility. And in fact, we're offering to increase the number of units produced as a result of this. With the caveat that they will not be at 116 East Main Street. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I'm happy to come
Yeah,
back. then.
actually, I need to look at the calendar. We don't have a meeting in 2 weeks. Because that's May 31st.
Off week, the next meeting is June 7th.
Next meeting is June 7th. I will not be here on June 7th.
Wow.
Yeah, so. I should-
And I will not be here because I am the acting mayor from May 31st until June
Oh, he's on
11th.
vacation.
Because so I will not be able to participate.
So,
I got a list of things for you to do.
so the next one will be like June 21st. That's a long time.
June 21st. Well, it's 4 weeks, but
So can I ask some more questions?
yeah,
right.
that's why we're here.
I just looked on Trulia and unit number 4 is off the market. Have they all been sold?
Not that, I don't think so. Not that
Okay.
I've occupancy permits yet.
They don't have.
That would be awkward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What?
just to look at.
Yeah, there was only one online, so, and there's 8 units, right?
Yeah.
There was only one and it said it was off market, so.
Yeah, so I don't represent the owner in their transactional side, so I'm not aware of how far they are as far as any pre-sale or something like that. I just don't know.
And I would argue that bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That's my argument, your one affordable housing unit today or July, whatever it is, versus 2 affordable housing units wherever and whenever, this
Where?
one is, that's my argument, anyway.
Where are we contemplating these 2 new units? I mean,
So if we get through
Yeah.
this phase, then he'll identify property in the market. And my read of it, it's construction of units, right? So you either have to go, find something virgin, which is very hard to find around here, and put 2, or you find a single and you make it a 3, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And to Councilor O'Neill's concern, I'm not saying you have to go between, a bird in the hand or 2 in the bush. I'm saying you can go bird in the hand or 2 birds in the hand. You condition this, for example, you can hold back. You say, hey, listen, that's fine, because I think 511.9D, one of these sections, talks about setting up a schedule. And you can say, hey, listen, you were supposed to put that 8th unit was supposed to be affordable unit. You're not getting the occupancy permit for that 8th unit. That 8th unit is going to be an empty building until these 2 units are built somewhere. you're allowed to make sure that those 2 units get finished before 116.
I think it's actually 50%.
So 50% is the default, but if you look at the end of that paragraph, it says, or in accordance with a written agreement approved by city council as a condition of a special permit or approval. So there's leeway there. And then 511(9)D, timing of construction. So the city council shall set time schedule of construction of both affordable and market rate units. So there's this ability for us to negotiate as part of the permit, what that looks like. And so if you want to hold a unit hostage, we expect that you'll do so, and that we have to get these 2 affordables up and out. And then okay, these 2 exist, right? The 2 in the hand, not in the bush anymore.
Mhm.
Now you can take that one that was supposed to be affordable and sell it at market rate.
So how can you claim hardship when you have the money to build 2 more affordable units? That's, how can you do, how can that be? How can you not be making any money, but yet spending a lot of money building 2 more units?
Well, that's why I gotta show you in 4 weeks, right?
Okay,
Yeah, it's a legit concern because.
No, of course, yeah.
The affordable units have to be comparable to the ones that are being
Yes, correct.
constructed. So you're talking about building 2 comparable units to one on East Main Street that is going to satisfy the qualification of comparable.
Mhm.
And
good luck.
I'm kind of curious to see this magic trick too.
This
Yeah,
is a
and
few, right?
and we have to remember that there's gonna be one available now. Because, that's all ready to go.
Right.
For some family that really needs it. And we could wait for years to get the other 2, wherever they're gonna be, habitable for a family after zoning and
Well, that depends
permitting
on
and
us
everything.
setting the schedule,
Right,
you know.
but it's just, it's not as easy to find that space as we think. And that's.
There's a view there too, right? I mean,
So
they
I-
have a view of the harbor.
Just so that we're really clear on everything, and you pointed out 511(9)D, which gives the timing of construction as a condition of the issuance of approval and this inclusionary housing requirement. Ordinance, the city council planning board shall set time schedules for construction of both affordable and market rate units. But we're already past that because you guys are almost done completion of the existing units on there. But it does say that off-site affordable units or cash contributions must be constructed or made prior to the issuance of 50% of the occupancy permits for market rate units requiring the creation of an affordable unit in a multifamily development. Or prior to the issuance of 50% of the building permits for market rate units requiring the creation of an affordable unit in the conventional subdivision, open space recreational district, or no, OSRD.
Residential development.
Residential, thank you. Or cluster development, which doesn't count here, or in accordance with the agreement approved by the city council planning board as a condition of special permit approval. So, the council could hold it to 50% and say you can't have 50% occupancy until you have these 2 units done. So, I mean,
But that would create more hardship, right?
I don't think so, because that's not. No, I don't
I
think
think we
so.
need to pause, and I think there's another reason to pause, which is if you and I are both gonna be out for that first Tuesday meeting
Yeah.
in June,
I think you want to say.
the applicant would already be down possible votes to make the 6.
Although, yeah, well, they certainly.
I
would.
mean, it just.
I think it would
it's
be unfair for a
because
subcommittee.
You're out of the country, wherever, no, but you won't be at the meeting, and,
My Rottweilers controlling the house. All right, so
what do I get back?
let's continue. You'll probably want to know that.
So when?
Just stick around for a while.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Just keep
continue this
coming.
until Wednesday, the 21st
okay.
of July, of June. June.
Okay.
June. We're never gonna get to this.
Is that Fiesta?
It is,
Is it?
yeah.
So,
So it's okay to be, a little on the wild side.
Okay, I can zoom in from the St. Peter's Club and do this.
yeah.
Right.
I need it.
We didn't open this up to questions, the audience. We've had, who's had their hand up. I'm inclined to allow a question. James' hand, but if it's a statement, I'm gonna cut you off because this isn't the public hearing. And we've had a lot of new information being presented, so I'm perfectly happy to allow a question if you'd like to ask one. So you can bring Kelly in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, hi. One of the issues here, now you've disappeared from my screen, but you can hear me, I think. So,
Kelly,
one of the, yeah,
Kelly, just, I want to make sure this is a question and not a statement.
okay, yeah, I'll phrase it as a question. So, in a request to make an in lieu of payment, one of the conditions that wasn't discussed tonight, and I want to know why it wasn't, I want to know why this wasn't discussed, was that any substitution of new units be in the immediate neighborhood of this project. Because one of the conditions agreed upon at the original meeting was that the permit was granted with a condition that an affordable unit be on the site. They wanted to make an in lieu of payment then, but were not allowed to. It was a condition. So my question is, doesn't the immediate locality of any replacement unit count in this situation? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I will read you 511-8B1, which is the offsite location. It says, with authorization by the city council or planning board as described above, affordable units may be constructed by the developer on an alternative site. The alternative site must be suitable for residential development within the city of Gloucester, and the newly constructed units must be added to the city stock of affordable dwelling units. Off-site units shall be no fewer than the number of units that would have been otherwise provided on site, shall be comparable in design, external appearance, construction, and quality of materials to the on-site units, and shall be subject to the same construction schedule as required for on-site units as set forth in section 511-10D. The location and construction of the off-site units is to be provided, shall be reviewed by the city council or planning board as an integral element of the special permit and approval process. So,
Right. So if I can interrupt, you already said that doesn't apply because that is something that has to be applied before the permit is granted. The permit's already been granted, and you described the requirements to change it as being that it not be any more detrimental to the neighborhood. See, you're not that you'll find that language if you look closely.
right, I thank you for your question, and we'll put that into our thinking here. But the specific, it's actually not more detrimental to the city, but
Neighborhood, neighborhood.
okay, I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Let one, let two. Mary Ann Boucher, would you like to ask a question? Name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you, Mary Ann Albert Boucher. What you just read, Jason, was that language there prior to the permit being granted?
Yes, that's the language of the 2019 ordinance that was in effect, which we've determined is the controlling ordinance.
And was that language presented to the general public at any meeting leading up to the permit being granted?
I wasn't on the council at that point. I don't know if that was specifically read.
Okay, and was that also read at any of the legal court? I don't know if the court case had anything to do with it prior to this developer, but was any of that read at that, I guess?
Again, I wasn't on the council at the
I have
time.
to go back and read it, but typically our motions are very specific to what we are approving
Right,
with reference to
And-
the different zoning ordinance.
And
So,
it's not, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Suzanne, but it's not necessary to read into each permit existing zoning ordinances that impact that permit. So, the fact that it's in the zoning ordinance is enough to subsume it into the general permit. I think that's the right word. So that even if you don't read it specifically, it is by its definition an ordinance that needs to be adhered to. So again, I don't know if it was read or not, but it wouldn't need to be read because it's an existing ordinance that was in effect at the time. And it dealt with the conditions of the permits that were being asked for by the applicant. So
It's up, and the sections of the ordinance are always referenced in the motion. So
Yeah, so
I can,
sorry.
Am I still on?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know I was still on it. I'm sorry.
Okay. So does that answer your question?
Not really. I guess I've attended mostly every meeting in regards to this, and I've, I just think we've led the public to believe one thing, and now suddenly we're finding out all this other information, as you say you are as well. And it's just disappointing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? And we'll, if not, we'll move on to the next issue.
Oh, don't we have to vote? Let's say,
No, we're continuing.
oh, okay.
We don't have to vote to continue. do we? No, I don't think so. Yeah, so continue to the 21st of June. All right, so now I gotta find my pile of papers here. Where are we? Thank you, Joel, for that.
Thanks, Joe.
I'm done, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you done? No, you're not done.
Okay.
I'd be happy to take out of order number 6, if you'd like to.
Is that Connellan
If
Road?
is it brief? Thank you, Suzanne.
Is that Connellan Road?
Yes,
Oh, sure, yeah, I can do this in 30 seconds.
it's,
The status update is that we are paused at the planning board. There was a meet for review. There have been 2 departmental or tag meetings with various city officials. And the applicant is in the process of revising the proposed amendment. That'll go back to planning board for them to finish their informal review. They'll make an informal recommendation to the city council, and then you will decide whether or not you want to initiate formal consideration of the revised language. And that's
Okay.
all I got.
all right.
Joel Pavazza on behalf of, Hiltz at 24 Cumberland Road.
Yeah. All right, thank you. It's DLM property.
DLM property
There you go.
policy.
You said the applicant is in the process of revising the order?
They're,
Not
in,
the applicant.
they're in the process of revising what they want to apply for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Joel, thank you very much
Good
for coming in.
Thank you, Joel.
Hey, It's
Thanks.
nice to see your shining face.
Yes,
Good night.
good Concom now.
Oh, have fun. Good. All right, with that, we have, finally, that was a lot, yeah. Number 5, special council permit 2023-006. Dale Avenue, number 2, map 14, lot 69, cluster zoning ordinance, section 3.1.6B, building heights in excess of 35 feet. And with that, we have, I believe, Vern Sibley, and who else do we have on here? Jenny Benedict. And is Ron Lamar, is he also on? Okay. So you're under 3.1.6B, you are applying for a special permit for a height of 35 feet. This is a little bit of a twist though, interestingly. I'll let you go forward and we'll go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Grow, and to the committee for considering the special permit for building height in excess of 35 feet. I'm going to share my screen. Let me just. Is that good for everybody? Yep, okay. Well, let me just make sure I can Here we go. So I'm going to speak a little bit to where we are in terms of city project approvals. And then Ron will do the project overview and the special permit application. So to start with a few words about the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners Public Library Construction Grant Program and where the special permit falls in relation to it. I think as council is aware, it's largely due to a $9 million grant award from the MBLC that we have the opportunity to do this project and to secure our public institution for generations to come. So the MBLC grant has a number of milestones and requirements, and it also recognizes factors that are subject to local decision making. So the building must be planned for a minimal operational life of 20 years, and that influences the building size. And the design and construction of the library building program, so the interior of the building, is subject to MBLC oversight. So they are involved throughout the process and have the authority to review and approve plans and specifications and the contract awards. At this time, the MBLC has reviewed the design development drawings and determined that they do meet the library building program requirements, and they've accepted the design for the grant award. Recognizing the city's permitting process and local decision-making authority, we have been involved with those processes since January. The Historic District Commission has approved a certificate of appropriateness in early January, and then the site plan was approved by the Planning Board in early February. In late March, the Zoning Board of Appeals gave their approvals for special permits related to altering and expanding a non-conforming structure to exceeding the maximum allowable building height and to allow a lesser number of off-street parking spaces. And they also approved a variance for parking lot screening requirements. And that is what brings us to before you in May. So I will now turn it over to Ron for the project overview of the site plan and exterior renderings, followed by elevations that show the building height.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ron Lamar with Doran Whittier Architects. And for the record, I'm from Atkinson, New Hampshire, which is right next to Haverhill, Massachusetts. And the street address is 3 Hoyt Circle. So what you're looking at here is a zoning map. The CCD zoning in yellow on the brown structure that is the existing Sawyer Library and Saunders House. Adjacent to that, you'll see another CCD in yellow, which is a former site which was purchased by the library. And then 2 more just to the left of that, which are residential zoned, 2 sites that were also purchased by the library. What you see here is a site plan of the new addition. The Saunders House down in the lower right-hand corner is existing and outside the scope of this particular project. The new addition, which you see in gray just to the left of the existing library, is the new addition that's being proposed with all the landscaping around it. And then you see the parking lot on the far left, which is, as Jenny said, it's been through the permitting process to allow for 26 spaces. So this is the proposed renovation of the Manel building, the 1975 Manel building. What you see here on the front is a new front porch, basically the same height as the existing. But what we're doing is the entrance, if you're familiar with the building, the entrance is moving towards the right, which is a direct entrance to Dale Avenue. And then along the left-hand side, there will be a sloped walkway for handicap accessibility that gets you up to that same landing. The fountain and natural plantings take place within that sloped walkway to make it part of the site, essentially making the entire entrance handicap accessible. This is a view from the corner, looking down towards the fire station there in the back. You can see how the front porch is designed as we just spoke about. The Manel building is prominent and remains prominent on the site itself. The addition towards the back of the building starts with a gasket, a glass gasket between the Manel building and the new addition, and then is emphasized with a bay window. And what you'll also notice is the monitor on top of the Manel building is being reframed. And that's why we're here tonight. The height of that monitor is actually 4 inches lower than the existing light monitor that's at the top of that building. And then this is a view looking back up towards City Hall from the parking lot. And this is the new addition. And as the Historic Commission, Planning and Zoning wrote up, they feel that this is appropriate for the design of the building. We're taking some tapered brick details from the Manel building and implementing into the new. Lots of natural daylighting. This is a net zero ready building in a compliance with the Mass Saves program, and it will be LEED Gold. What you see there is the entrance with some signage from the new parking lot into the new addition. And then this is the view from the Temple property, which is on the south side of the building. Again, we emphasize that gasket between the Manel building and the new addition on the left. And again, you can see the monitor up at the top has been rebuilt. So for the special permit application, we essentially are simply defining that the existing building itself has an existing light monitor up at the top of the Manel building that is 49 feet 5 inches. And our new monitor will be 49 feet 1 inch. And that is from the average grade plane around the building, which the zoning and planning board have also reviewed. This particular image was put together for the zoning so that they could see that the red diagram at the new entrance, the red diagram off to the right, which is the new addition, and the roof monitor itself on the Manel building. Those are the new parts of the building that are being added to the existing structure on this non-conformance site. But this particular non-conformance issue of the height is that the existing building was already in excess of 35 feet. And in rebuilding this, we want to make sure we don't go above that. So it's designed 4 inches shorter. And then this is the view from the north, looking at the addition to the right, the Manel building in the center, and the addition on the left. Again, you can see that gasket in the lower photo, and you can see the red outline of the addition on the right, the porch on the left, and the monitor up at the top. And then this is just the other image looking from the parking lot or the fire station. Looking back towards, you can again see the building itself and the monitor up at the top. And then this is the final view, if you will, from the south side where the temple was in our last image. And so that's the gist of the height request that's being applied for, is to continue the non-conformance height and making it 4 inches shorter.
So thank you for that, Ron, and I think we'll turn it back to the committee for questions.
Right. Any questions?
I've got a stupid one.
Yeah, go for it, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
I've never heard the word monitor for a section of a building. Can you expand in terms of what that is? Because I've just never heard that word. Obviously, it's a more Whittier term and it's a building term, but just never heard it. So
Yeah. So you may have heard the word cupola in the past.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yep. And so I guess the next generation of cupola, if you will, is a light monitor. Essentially, it's designed to bring in as much natural light as we can through top lighting of the building. Cupolas used to do exactly the same thing, except it was for air ventilation. With buildings the way they are now, we are more intent on bringing in natural daylighting because the buildings themselves have different types of ventilation these days. It's not natural ventilation that is used to cool the building. It's fully air conditioned.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you.
That it?
Yeah.
That was fun. I can. Any questions?
Only that it says, in the recommendation, it says for a total height increase of 14 feet 1 inch, when it's really not an increase,
It's over 35.
right?
Right.
It's a-
That's actually,
Right,
I'm sorry, that's actually referencing the new addition,
right,
because the new addition is taller than the 35 feet.
Right.
But it's shorter than the Manel building.
got it. Thank you.
Good?
Yeah.
Good?
Yes.
All right. I have no questions. Pretty straightforward. So with that, unless there's any other questions, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Move to recommend that the city council grant to Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library a special council permit 2023-006. The property located at Dale Avenue, number 2, Assessors Map 14, Lot 69, in the CCD district pursuant to Gloucester zoning ordinances section 1.10.1 and 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet. For the new Sawyer Free Library to have an overall building height of 49 feet 1 inch, for a total height increase of 14 feet 1 inch over 35 feet. This permit is made on the basis of plans and elevations dated January 18th, 2022, and submitted to the city clerk on May 9th, 2023, entitled Existing Conditions Plan, like Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library, and Utility Compilation Plan, Gloucester Lyceum and Sawyer Free Library, and 19 plans and elevations submitted with the ZBA application of February 2nd, 2023, subject to new information and or debate that results from the public hearing. The special permit is deemed to be in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance, and I so move. Second. I should point out, we didn't go over section 1.8.3, which is,
You don't need to do that.
we don't need to do that. Well, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
because it's just,
standards to be applied on the height.
I know, just want to make sure we applied that. This is similar to the One Valley Point Road that we just also dealt with. So there are no issues revolving around 1.8.3 for the special counsel. So is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, can we, I'm not getting on my, I'm not getting a connection
I'll call
tonight
it up right
here.
now.
It just keeps running. It says that I'm hooked up, but I'm not getting a connection.
Gloucester's is on amendment. 1 second here. Give us 1 moment, folks. Section 1. 10. Miscellaneous special permits, 1.10.1, jurisdiction of the city council and zoning board of appeals. Oh, it's just, that's just giving us the right to issue a special council permit.
Okay.
It's the city council shall hear and decide on applications for the following miscellaneous special council permits. Special permits pursuant to section 3.1.6, authorizing increase in building height over 35 feet in certain zoning districts, subject to standards set forth therein. So that's what that is. And standards being applied, determination by the city council. The proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance based on the standards and requirements set forth in the applicable section of this ordinance as referenced above. And that's pretty much it.
And the abutters have been notified and.
I'm assuming the abutters have been notified, yes?
So as a point of clarification, is this referred to as a public hearing of council? Is that the
Yes.
process moving forward?
This will be referred to a public, yeah, it'll have to go to public hearing.
Yeah, so the abutters will be notified of the public hearing. Yes.
Yeah. Anything else on the motion?
No, I don't see in the motion, the dates. Can you just check to make sure that, I'd like to learn what the date was for the planning director to sign this and for the building inspector. I have we have the city council, the city clerk's day of May 9th.
Correct.
Um,
Building excuse me. The building inspector signed off, certified the application. He certified for completeness on April 20th, 2023, and the planning director signed off on April 20th, 2023 as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Yep.
Good. And what would be the public hearing date?
Public hearing date deadline is June 30th, so we can either do May 23rd, June 13th, or June 27th.
Sooner the better?
Yeah, so as again, a point of clarification, is there a 14-day notice period required for the public hearing?
It would be-
Yes.
Yeah.
So we can't do
do the
it.
23rd.
We can't do the 23rd. And
Oh, I'm sorry,
You have
yes,
to do
because
the
that's
sixth.
what are the
that
dates
one's
in June,
passed.
Sharon?
June 13th and June 27th.
Yes.
Okay, so June 13th would be okay.
June 13th? June 13th, okay for you
Okay
for
with you?
notice and all that? Good, all
That
right.
would be great. Thank you.
All right, on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Passes 2-1, O'Neill. In opposition. All right, so this will move to the city council for public hearing on June 13th. And that's it.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
You
you.
got-
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody.
Council.
thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I just want to, I know that Joel's already left, it doesn't really matter for him, and Suzanne's left, but I want to get back to our issue on the 116 East Main Street. We didn't take it to vote on whether or not to accept 760 as the definition of reasonable return. And I wondered if we need to do that.
I think we should either accept it or, I think we should make it clear if we accept it or if we don't.
Right,
And should we not put it in our ordinances? As
Well-
as a definition of
moving forward,
reasonable return or versus what is it, uneconomic?
uneconomic.
So in other words, would uneconomic be 14.99 and reasonable return be 15?
I don't
I
know
think
that,
we should definitely clarify that with a number.
right, I don't know that, I'm just gonna see if whether or not it comes up again in the ordinance now.
Okay.
I would suggest that we determine that the next meeting, not today.
Right, but they're gonna be coming in
Ask
because we
for-
sent them off packing with the idea that 760 was gonna, reasonable rate of return was 15%.
Did we? Yeah. I think I didn't.
I think we read to them what was
Right,
here.
yes,
And I would say that we kind of agreed to pause and then
Right.
go over this.
All right.
I think they left thinking that we were in line with 760,
okay. Well,
but I don't know
But I
what
think
it
it's
did.
something, I agree with you that I think at the next meeting, we need to be clear.
Exactly, yeah,
And that's something
Okay.
that
hard
our
line.
meeting and
all right, fair enough.
we'll come
I think
here
that's-
with questions.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, and we don't discuss that here at P and D? Or
We
should
would discuss it at the next PD meeting
Right.
that we had this at, so it'd be at the 21st meeting.
Okay.
But
But should we amongst ourselves determine that before the next meeting, before the next?
that's what I'm
meeting?
asking.
Well,
That's what
right.
I was
Well, I
asking.
think we just have to read up on it. We can't discuss, we can't have a meeting.
We can't do it, no, but it should be,
It
she
has
means
to
right
be
now.
a Meeting.
Yeah,
Well, no, so how do we connect with each other before the next meeting?
No.
No,
no, we definitely don't want to do
Okay.
that.
We have to have an
Yeah.
official meeting.
Right.
And to
Okay.
discuss. it.
But to be fair, it is on the agenda. I mean, you're not gonna be at the P and D for the 7th and I'm not.
But we said Right, we're not gonna,
Right.
this isn't gonna be discussed again until
Till
the
June
second
1st.
meeting in June.
4 weeks.
Yes.
Right.
I would suggest that individually.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
can
absolutely.
consult with your city solicitor and ask any
Right.
questions
Right.
that you
Okay.
have and anything clarifying
And
that.
that's
That's
a
perfectly,
good idea.
That makes sense, yeah.
perfectly good idea. And that's what she's there as a resource for.
Yep. Great idea.
Good. So with that, I believe that we are finished tonight. Yes, we're good.
Move.
Go. So motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
Aye. Thank you very much for coming, folks.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.